My name is Danica, and today I want to talk about how I monetized my book blog. So 8 years ago, I started the Lesbury, which is a bi and lesbian book blog, and when I started it, I wasn't expecting to make any money off of it. And I still don't make a ton of money, but I do make enough to be sort of a part-time job. But it took a lot of trial and error for me to get there, so I thought I would share some of my tips of what's worked for me in monetizing my blog. This was originally a post on Book Riot, so I'll link that down below if you would rather read this, but I thought it'd be fun to actually talk about. So I'm going to start with a bunch of disclaimers that this is just what worked for me, that I'm not making a huge amount of money, I'm not living off this money, and I'm sure this isn't the only or possibly the best way to monetize a book blog, but this is what I've been doing. So I thought I'd start with some tips about how to start a book blog if you haven't started it already. My first one would be branding. I was always really happy with the name The Lesbury because it is really Googleable. There's not a lot of people using that word. I kind of made it as a back formation from Lesburian. It's short, it's pretty easy to remember, and it really concisely describes what I'm trying to do. I feel like most people who are potential readers of my blog will see the word Lesbury and immediately know whether they're interested or not. So I would recommend that when you're coming up with a name for your blog, it's something that you can quickly rise to the top of the Google results for that name, that word. I also fairly early on bought a .com domain. I also commissioned someone to do my banner art, which to me helped a lot. It made me feel like the blog was a lot more professional. I am not skilled at all in art or in design, so having someone else do that was a big help to me, and it was definitely worth the money, and every time I look at it, I'm happy. If I could go back in time, I probably would have paid someone to design the website as well, or done some sort of Squarespace one. I've been kind of cobbling together a website and trying to learn how to do the coding as I go, and that is a lot more work than I was expecting. My second tip about starting a book blog is just being consistent with content. I was blogging for years before I made $1 off of it, and most blogs don't really last years. I had to gather a base of readers and of fans, and most of all I had to make sure it was sustainable. I've seen a lot of queer book blogs pop up and put out an amazing amount of content, really fantastic stuff. Like, I've seen so many blogs that when they came out I thought, oh my god, this person is just blowing it out of the water. I feel like, what am I even doing here? Because they're just doing an incredible job. And then they burn out because they're putting out these huge, intricate posts, you know, multiple times a week while they're still working full-time or going to school full-time. They are obviously really excited and want to put out a bunch of content, but it's not sustainable. They run out of ideas or time or energy, and they just stop doing it altogether. So as much as it's great to want to start off strong and put out a lot of content, you do want to make sure that this is something that you can actually sustain, because it can take a lot of work and a lot of time, and you want to make sure that you're not just going to dump all of your great ideas in the first couple of weeks and then never update again. One of the things that helped for me at the Lesbury is I built a team of reviewers, so they all have access to the books that I'm sent for review. They all submit a review a month, which is pretty low commitment, but having like 20 different reviewers means that I can be putting out posts almost daily without having to feel like I have to read a huge amount of books and review a huge amount of books to be able to put out enough content. My next tip about building your audience is all about cross-promotion. The Lesbury is the foundation of my online work. It is the thing that's the closest to my heart, but it's not actually where I make the most money. I see way more interaction on Twitter and especially Tumblr. I started a tie-in Tumblr called Bi and Lesbian Literature, and I see so much more interaction just from the format of Tumblr. You have people commenting and liking and reblogging, and when they reblog your posts, it passes it on to their audience, who pass it on to their audience, and you can make a lot more connections and have your stuff seen a lot further. So that's been really great for me to build an audience and kind of get a little more attention. I still like having a blog elsewhere that's a little more professional looking and that is a little easier to navigate, but I do love Twitter and Tumblr for making connections and building an audience and getting more of that interaction. So now on to actually making money book blogging. My first source of income online, and still one of the biggest sources of income for me, is Amazon affiliate links. And this can be kind of a tricky point because I don't don't like Amazon. I don't really shop on Amazon. I don't support Amazon as a company. So it took me a while before I started doing Amazon affiliate links. I originally was doing IndieBound links. I've seen people do, I think, Book Depository links and other sites. The thing is that other affiliate links don't really, in my experience, make you money. Amazon links are going to get basically 10 times as much traffic because people trust Amazon. They're way more likely to buy on Amazon. The other thing is if you click through someone's Amazon link and you buy anything else in the next, I think, 48 hours, they'll still get a cut of whatever you're buying. So I get income from Amazon affiliate links that are for kitty litter or for someone's camera or kitchen stuff. And it's just stuff that people have bought after they've clicked through a link of mine. They may not have bought what I actually linked, but they bought something else later. So I started incorporating Amazon affiliate links into, I'd link every cover at the Lesbury, every book cover. I also link the first and last time that I mention a book title in a review and any of the reviews. But I make more money off Amazon affiliate links on Tumblr, which is interesting. Every time I mention a book on Tumblr, I link it to its Amazon page. And sometimes it's just describing an image on Tumblr. I do image descriptions so that people who use screen readers can understand what the image is. And in those image descriptions, I will link the book title to Amazon. So oftentimes I'm just doing an image description of someone else's post that I've reblogged, and I'll find out that I have made way more money on Amazon affiliate links on that post than on my original post. So that, I think, is a really easy, simple way to start monetizing your content. You never know when a Tumblr post is going to just explode, so that for me has been a big help. Second for me was starting to blog outside of my platform, specifically writing for Book Riot. So Book Riot allowed me to write about bookish things that weren't relevant to the Lesbury. It also let me reach a bigger audience that I would have on my own blog. And Book Riot is also really awesome about allowing you to repost your Book Riot content on your own blog after a certain amount of time. So I can write something, post it on Book Riot, get some money for that, and then later repost it on my own blog to build the content there. So that's a big help. I love writing for Book Riot. There's lots of other blogs you can write for that will pay you, but Book Riot is my home on the internet now. They're really great people, very supportive, so I've really enjoyed writing for them. And then my next point is starting a Patreon. I was very skeptical about starting a Patreon because it didn't feel like I was doing something original or artistic enough that someone would want to support me on Patreon. But if you've developed a strong brand and a strong following, Patreon can be a really great option. I didn't start a Patreon until I'd really developed that base of fans, until I had more than 10,000 followers on Tumblr, and it still took me years before I was making like $100 a month. But having that reliable income is super helpful. Something like Amazon affiliate links or even my other writing online, it depends on a lot of different factors and you can't really control it and you don't know when the money is coming in. So being able to do Patreon and have like a fairly steady kind of monthly income is really great because that's something you can budget for, and it means that I was able to take less hours at work and put that time into the website because I knew I had that income to support it. I wouldn't recommend starting a Patreon lightly though, because the launch is super, super important. I would really recommend planning out how you're going to launch it, which rewards you want to have, making it look really nice, because if it flops in the first couple days, you probably aren't gonna easily come back from that. I definitely think having rewards is super helpful, and especially if you can do tangible rewards, like physical things you can get someone, those always go over well. But again, you want to make sure this is sustainable. This is something that you can do long term. I would recommend having a Patreon level that's higher than you think anyone would ever do, because sometimes people will surprise you and they will click that higher level. I would also recommend that if you're going to offer reward, even if you think no one will ever take you up on it, make sure it's something you could actually do, because again, you want it to be sustainable. You don't want to disappoint people who are trying to support you. And then after that is direct advertisement. I only started advertising on the Lesbury within the last year or so. If you have a niche blog, and I have a blog with a pretty narrow focus, something like Google Ads isn't really appealing because they're only giving you money based on views or clicks, and you might not have a huge audience, but what you have is a very specialized audience. So I didn't want to have ads that were irrelevant on my website. I didn't want my ads to make the site look worse, and I also wanted to be making enough money off them to make it worthwhile. So I decided to go with direct advertising, and basically what I did was try to research what other niche blogs were offering for their ads. I did a test ad to see how to format it and how many clicks it got, and then once I was pretty confident about all of that, I reached out to authors and publishers, and specifically I reached out to authors and publishers I already had a relationship with who had already submitted their works for review at the Lesbury. I also put up a page that said advertise with the Lesbury, and it had all the information, and I posted about it on Tumblr and the Lesbury, and I tweeted about it. I actually ended up selling out a year's worth of ads in the top 2 spots pretty quickly, and that's when I realized that I had undersold my ads, and I started kind of tweaking the prices and figuring out what was a reasonable amount to ask for and what people would be willing to pay for. So I kind of adjusted them up, and then when the ads stopped selling, I adjusted them down again. So there was a period of adjustment, but basically I would say really think about what is worthwhile for you and don't undersell yourself too much. And lastly, there are a few other little bits and pieces where I make money online. I offer sponsored reviews, sponsored posts. I have offered sponsored videos. I haven't had any yet, but who knows, one day I might. Sponsored reviews I know can be pretty controversial, but I very clearly mark what the sponsored reviews are, and I know that I am honest in my reviews. I'm not just going to give you like a raving 5-star review just because it's a sponsored review. All the sponsored review is guaranteed coverage. Because one of the things I found was when I first started the blog, I was really excited about any arc that I was given, any free books I was sent. I was like super stoked about it, and I felt like I had to review it, even if it wasn't really something that I was interested in. Now I realize that first of all, I'm getting way more than I could possibly read, and second of all, that this is advertising for these publishers and these authors. When you write a review of it, you are doing labor, you are advertising for them. You really shouldn't feel pressured like you have to if you're not getting paid for it. So my sponsored reviews are just an option to say if you want guaranteed coverage, you can do a sponsored review, or you can submit your book and it will be considered for review. This is a source of income that's super inconsistent for me. I can go 6 months without getting one, and then I'll get 3 in the same month. So those are some of the strategies that I've used to monetize my book blog. It took me a long time to figure out what worked for me, and I think I'm still kind of experimenting. If you have any tips, feel free to leave them in the comments, and thank you for watching.